All right, boys, we're back. We had a long break. I don't think we've done a pod since the Avs got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, so it's been a while. I guess congrats to the Florida Panthers, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. For the sixth straight year in a row, a Florida team was in the Cup final. And yet Gary Bettman says the no state tax has no implication on how teams do. But we don't need to necessarily touch on that today. I'll throw this out there to you guys. What was your just overall general thoughts of how the playoffs went this year? I mean, you basically had the same four teams in the final conference finals. Carolina was there instead of New York for last year. So for as much as they say there's parity in the league, really when playoffs come to it, there's really not.
I think just one word in my mind that kind of summarizes this year's playoffs. I thought it was rather anticlimactic to compare to other years. I thought there was just a lot of I didn't really realize it in the moment, but like sort of after the fact, you kind of look back on the playoffs and realize there was a lot of matchups that were hyped that didn't really live up to that hype. I think round one was probably the best. And the rest of the way it kind of fizzled out. There was some good hockey games in that range. I just think you take away those the 3-game-7 series, I guess, that we had in the playoffs. Everything else was kind of I don't know, not up to the standard that I like to see, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys agree that the Dallas Colorado series was maybe the series of the playoffs and it was a first round matchup?
Yeah, being a little bit biased, maybe. There's a lot of close games in that series, and two of the games were kind of blowouts or whatever. But maybe kind of hockey wise, watching it, yeah, between that, I think you just kind of look at any of the 7-game series that did happen. There wasn't many Toronto, Florida probably had its moments too, where the Leafs go up 2-0 and then Florida comes storming back, and the back and forth in that series, I'd say, is probably up there too. But it's almost hard to look back on the playoffs, even it's been done for a week, just how drawn out the scheduling was. And the Cup Finals was scheduled for 2.5, almost 3 weeks. I think 20 days from start to finish. And to kind of go on how I feel about the playoffs, I really didn't like that. I kind of wanted, let's get this rolling here. And kind of, to Trav's point, the anticlimactic, you look at the two teams that made it to the finals, Florida went 5-7-5. The Oilers went 6-5-5 on the way. So other than that one series, with Toronto and Florida, it really didn't get close for either of these teams. They kind of, Edmonton lost those 2 games against LA, never looked back after. They were both kind of steamrolled through their conferences for the most part. And then Florida, I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about the finals, but I get Edmonton won a couple games there, but that series, other than game 1, that series should have been over in 5. For how close it maybe looked on some of the score sheets, I really don't think it was as close as kind of what that was showing. I think Florida was kind of hands above the better team there, and I don't really know how close that really was.
I 100% agree with that. We'll get to the Florida Toronto series a bit. I want to get a little more in depth on that one a bit later, but yeah, the finals, last year you could argue that if Edmonton had a bit better goaltending from Skinner, they might have won the Cup last year. This year, just like you said, Justin, Florida outclassed them completely. And it's not so much that it was, I mean, the Oilers goaltending was god awful in the finals, but they steamrolled their way through the Western Conference, mostly because they had depth scoring. And once they ran into Florida, if Draisaitl or McDavid weren't on the ice, nothing positive was even close to happening for Edmonton. So
and they got down so early every game almost that they had to put those two guys together.
and that's just it too. Like when your goaltending gives up a weak one at the start, or your defense or something, when you're chasing the game, you're chasing offense, and that team just doesn't have the depth of high-powered offense, especially when you compare to what Florida's top three lines did throughout the playoffs.
I will say one other thing. Like, I think them losing Hyman was like kind of very almost maybe like the nail in the coffin before that series even started. That's such a huge blow because then you're moving guys around. Like with Hyman there, you can keep McDavid and Draisaitl away from each other probably longer than what they had to do. Like fuck one shift into game 6, they're together for the whole game and they couldn't even do anything.
Yeah, no, it's such a testament to how Florida plays a team defense because, again, when push came to shove, they shut down the best players in the world on Edmonton. And like you said about Hyman, I mean, you had Podkolzin and Kasperi Kapanen had a pretty good series in the finals for the most part, but they were kind of one of those two should have been playing lower in the lineup than what they were, but you had to move them up because Hyman's not there. And
Evander Kane was in the box 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah, I mean, when he's your neutralizer for how Tkachuk and Bennett play and he's not on the ice for long stretches, then what's the point of him dressing? Because he was invisible otherwise. While we're on Kane, actually, we're gonna jump around before we get too far into this, folks. We're gonna jump around a lot because there's so much to touch on. We're just gonna do a lot of random and sporadic ideas and thoughts here. But what's your guys' thoughts on the Kane Edmonton Vancouver trade? I mean, we saw that come through, and I thought it might have involved Demko, but ended up being just a cap dump. Edmonton did get a 4th-round pick, so they didn't have to pay to get rid of him. But what's your guys' thoughts? More on the Vancouver side because they traded Miller last year because of dressing room issues, and now they're bringing in Kane.
Sounds very Vancouver-like of them. I don't know. I don't have too much on the trade. I guess it's still pretty fresh. Trading like right after the cup too is like kind of a weird one. Like that doesn't really sink in with me just because like hockey's finally over and now like I feel like there's like a detox period after the season. Where I like kind of shut my brain off from hockey for a little bit. But yeah, I don't know, like interesting trade, I guess. Or like I really don't have much else of a thought on it, I guess.
You got anything, Justin?
It just seems like a weird trade for Vancouver overall. They help a division rival with their cap situation take on a guy that, like, I don't understand if you're going to, like, I get they're two different players, but if you're going to pay Evander Kane, what, $5 million, why you just can't pony up and you keep Besser unless he really doesn't want to stay. But, yeah, I don't really understand it from the Canucks standpoint, like at all. Like I get why Kane would want to go there because he's from there. Maybe that's kind of what he's looking for, but the Canucks side doesn't make much sense to me, and so I guess it makes total sense, like Trav said, like it's complete Canucks move of just having like little direction and just kind of going with it.
Yeah. In hindsight, I think Vancouver probably should have traded Besser at the deadline because I'm guessing he either always wanted out or his asking price is going to be 7-8 million, and Vancouver doesn't want that. But it's also one too where after the trade deadline, especially after the season, all the rumors of Quinn Hughes and possibly wanting to sign with his brothers in New Jersey come free agency, like Vancouver has to all of a sudden shift from maybe doing a retool year here to no, we got to prove to Quinn that we are going to be competitive long term. And it starts now, like this off season. I agree with both you guys though. Like this long, like big picture, it just doesn't make sense bringing in a guy like Kane because he might give you 30 games. He might give you all 82 games of the season. Who knows? But of those games that he plays, what's he going to give you and what's he going to be in the dressing room? So it's definitely a wait and see kind of situation there. But flip back to Edmonton. Let's go back to Stan Bowman's comments at the after the deadline when he didn't get a goalie, saying that their goalies were confident in their goaltending down the stretch, or the fact that at the start of the Cup final, he said Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard had been the best goalies in the Western Conference because Edmonton was in the finals again. Is that just like blissful arrogance, or is that Bowman just trying to deflect any real 100% blame to the goaltending, just dropping the ball for Edmonton in the finals?
I don't know. It kind of just seems like Bowman deflecting to me, I guess. I mean, I will say the Stuart Skinner that showed up in the Dallas series was not the same Stuart Skinner that just showed up in the Florida series. I don't think the outcome would have been any different, but at certain points of the playoffs, I think Bowman's comments maybe ring a little bit true. But I don't know. That seems more like a deflection tactic to me than anything.
Yeah, it's 100% just him kind of covering himself for the way things turned out because the first two games of the playoffs that Skinner started, he looked like he should have been playing in the AHL playoffs. Then they run Pickard for 6 straight. They win 6 straight. He gets hurt, so they have to go back to Skinner. They have no choice. And then he does what he does and gets hot all of a sudden and goes on a bit of a run. For some reason, I don't really get it, but Edmonton matches up really well with Dallas. It seems like even watching that series, like anything Dallas kind of did, Edmonton was just really easy to deflect it and just kind of turn the game onto them. And they had the two big boys going, like Hyman was going, Perry was just kind of unreal for a bit. And it all just came crashing down against Florida. Skinner, yeah, I guess he maybe outdueled Ottinger, but I just think Edmonton played way better, which is also a big thing, too. So I don't know. I typically kind of think that he realized again that Edmonton just didn't have the goaltending to beat a team like Florida, and he's just like, well, he was good up until then, sure, but it was last year too, and I mean, I guess last year he was awful for 3 games, and then he was really lights out for the final 4. They lost by a goal.
Yeah, but that winning goal last year should have never went in.
No, it was brutal. I think that I don't know from what I heard, from what I've been just heard as in listening to other people's podcasts, that they tried. I'm pretty sure they tried to get Blackwood from San Jose. Probably similar would be probably getting rid of Skinner, and then it sounded like they could have had Gibson, but Gibson didn't want to tandem with Skinner, which I don't blame him. The guy's been around. He's proven that he doesn't need to be a tandem with another guy. He can be a number one goalie. So I wonder how much that changes this offseason, because they have a somewhat significant player to convince to sign long term with them after this year coming up. So I don't know what's stopping McDavid from saying, hey, like, if you want me to stay, like, this and this is what we need to improve if I'm going to sign here past 3 or 4 years, even sign that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk that McDavid's next deal is going to only be a 2 or 3 year. And yeah, Edmonton needs to prove that they can get solid goaltending for McDavid to stay. Like, the recipe isn't working, so they got to try something new. But so you touched on Blackwood there, Justin. Let's jump to the Avs here. They fell out first round against Dallas, but looks like they're going to be bringing back heading into the offseason here a lot of the same guys that were in that series. They re-signed Brock Nelson, 3 years, $7.5 million. Just get a quick thought from you guys on that, because I think maybe the cap hit's a little pricey for me, but otherwise I don't mind the deal. What's your guys' opinions?
Yeah, it's maybe a bit pricey, but I don't know, maybe like 500K more of kind of what you're going to get. Like, I think they kind of forced themselves into a wall here with kind of how much they gave up for him at the trade deadline, and kind of forced them to be like, we kind of need to keep this guy because we cannot go into another off season with uncertainty at this position. And, he didn't produce a lot in the playoffs, but he found a lot. Like, that second line of like him, Landy, and Nuke did look really good together. So, with an off season, training camp, preseason of, all these guys together, I think it'll be all right. So kind of with all saying that, like, whatever, I'm fine if they paid an extra 500 to 750 more to a guy to hopefully have a legit 2C, that I'm fine. And, looking back at his numbers, he's been in the league for what, 10, 12 years. He's averaging 25 goals, I think, since he's come in. So it's fine. Like, this team needs to fucking win now, because, even with the cap rising, they're up against it, and guys aren't getting younger. Like, your Nuke, Landy, all Taves, all those guys you've built around. That was the core when they won. You need to get another one with these guys for, I think, it to truly be like a successful run, because I think with having all these guys around, like, they're way too good just to win one title, or at least get there.
Yep. Trav, you have thoughts on the Nelson extension?
I think I think it's a decent enough deal. And I kind of said to you guys, I think it was a couple weeks ago there, I think there was just too much turnover in that locker room this year. Just way too many guys rolling through to build up any consistency, on a night in, night out basis. So I think, bringing Nelson back on what I considered to be a fair deal, in hopes that, he kind of finds his stride under a full season with the Avs. I think, guys go through rough patches, and yeah, he wasn't great in the playoffs this year, but given his track record, I'm okay with the Avs, kind of bringing him back, and let's get a full season with you here, and with the core of this team. And so yeah, I didn't hate the deal, personally.
So the other question facing Colorado this offseason is more what do they do with the prize piece that they got back in the Rantanen trade? Because the rumor's been out there. Martin H.S. didn't necessarily like his time in Colorado, apparently. He's up for extension. He has one more year left on his deal. He's such an interesting player. Like, he's right in his prime. He's possibly like now an 80, 90-point player. If you're the if we're Chris McFarland here, are we looking to trade Nechesh this offseason if you can't come to an extension, or are you kind of pulling a Rantanen and just gonna see if you can't figure something out before mid-season or not?
Fuck, I really see this kind of going the same way as it did with Mikko. If all these reports are true of him not enjoying his time, like, I don't really know what this guy needs to enjoy his time with an NHL club, because now he's played for two really good ones, and I don't know if he wants to play center. I've heard maybe that's a reason, but he's tried that, or teams have tried that. It doesn't work out. So sorry, you have to play on Nathan McKinnon's wing. Like, that's a pretty crappy consolation prize. So the numbers that sounds like he wants is like, 10 mil maybe. I'm not really sure that I would like them paying him that, but it really depends on what is available on the open market. Like, what do you get? Are you getting, another sort of deal where you get two players for him that are a bit lower, like they did with Rantanen, or what? So, if they trade him for a guy with term that's kind of at the same skill level, I'm also fine with that too. I just, same thing with like Duchesne and all these guys that have left. It's like, if you don't want to be here, like, they'll just get rid of you, and I'm fine with it too. Like, I'm not really married to the idea that Net just stays. I like watching him, but sometimes his demands seem a little kind of outrageous at times. So if it's true, I don't know. Like,
yeah. Trav, you have thoughts?
I actually just read right before we came on air. It was unlikely, or it was rumored to be unlikely, that the Avs were going to bring back Drouin. I think given the nature situation, especially if you know or have an idea about where that's going to go, I kind of wonder why you don't bring back Drouin. Especially if you are going to lose Natchez. I don't know. Maybe there's just too many unanswered questions right now. But I, for one, thought that Drouin had a pretty good year last year. I know he only played about half the season. And he maybe wasn't stellar in the playoffs, but I feel like they could bring him back on a respectable money deal. Might be a little more expensive than what he's making now, but I think Drouin has stated that he's happy in Colorado, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him take a pay cut if he knew he was going to have a chance to get a ring. So I guess that kind of dodges the Natchez situation, everything I just explained, but I just kind of just tying that in, like, I don't know how you don't bring it back Drouin if Natchez isn't coming back or is going to be moved.
Let's tie that in further then. Like, if basically, like, right now cap space is the issue, if they kind of have a rough idea what Drouin's number might be, if I'm McFarland, I'm working the draft floor, maybe trying to get in to the late first round with Natchez, or get a couple second round picks, or like just get futures for him. Because one thing, like, last year, that's different for the start of this year, Landeskog is going to be healthy to start the season. So, like, Colorado has now Ross Colton pushed down to the third line wing spot automatically here. So what's the harm in just moving Natchez for futures, bring back Drouin for on a cheaper cap hit than what Natchez was, and if Drouin gets hurt or if his play falters, you just kind of shift stuff around, because outside of Miles Wood, really on that third line, like 8 of the top 9 in Colorado are pretty interchangeable in terms of how you want to play them or like who you want to play them with, I think. So I'd be perfectly okay if the Avs on draft night just snuck into the first round or got more futures for Natchez just because, and then as long as they bring back Druin, because Natchez just isn't a guy he's not Rantanen's level where he puts the puck in the net at will when he wants. He's not quite McDavid or McKinnon's level of terrifying you off the rush. He's a kind of like lesser man's blend of the two. And yeah, really, to me, he's the guy that if he can't run his own line, then he needs to play with a guy like McKinnon. And if he's unhappy doing that, like you said, Justin, move off from him. But that's my opinion on that whole thing.
He's someone that could fetch you a pretty good haul if it's somewhere that he agrees to go to and sign. I think that's been a problem. Like I read that I think they tried to like Carolina, I think tried to trade him elsewhere, like maybe Buffalo or something. And he said, I'm not signing there. So I think probably Buffalo's like, no thanks or whatever, right? So, but like super skilled, fast, like if he's able to find somewhere that can like fit whatever narrative that he wants, then or maybe use him to maybe like figure out your second pair D and move away from those guys. Like there's a lot of things that could be up in the air with him, or with the Avs, I guess, but
here's the thought. I mean, it's trading in division, but Nashville has 3 first-round picks, and their second and third are 23rd and 26th overall. They're in desperate need to get younger, faster, and someone that kind of can play center. Why not call Barry Trotz and see if you can't get one, or depending on how big you want to make the trade, even try to get both and flip one. Like, because they're a team, like they're going to try to turn – Nashville wants to turn around and be competitive as quick as possible with how old a lot of their guys are. Why not take advantage of their situation and having multiple first-round picks? They're probably not going to be too eager to actually make those picks. So that's just the thought I just had. Like, it helps Nashville because it gives them a younger, speedier guy that can play center. And the Avs kind of offload Natchez and can just flip those first if they don't want to make a pick.
I don't need to see another guy ex-Av torch them again in division. You know that's going to happen. It always happens, man. Ex-Avs always torch the Avs. Big games, small games, it just...
Yeah.
No, I like if you take those picks, whatever, from Nashville and you flip them right away, because I see no need. If you're not drafting in the top 7, 8 of this draft, I see no need to keep your picks here.
No.
Maybe you have different thoughts on that, but everything I'm reading, seeing, whatnot, I think if you're even outside the top 10, like.
Yeah, like you can hit a diamond in the rough, like a late round first, but like, yeah, you're not getting a game changer in the late first round of this draft. I mean, another thought, if you don't like the in division, Pittsburgh's looking to get younger and all that. Why not go and see if you can't get a Brian Rust or Ricard Raquel from Pittsburgh? Fits your win now window. They're signed to 3 more years and cheaper.
Yeah, you could probably fleece Dubas, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. But let's shift back here. Justin, we touched on it, or you brought up the Toronto-Florida series. I know you guys, I probably know what your guys' thoughts on this is going to be. the whole thing going around once Florida won the Cup was Toronto was the only team to take them to 7. Therefore, they were the second best team in the playoffs. Let's hear what your guys' thoughts are.
I feel like I shit on the Leafs a lot on this show.
Keep it going.
But I don't know. That series wasn't as close as it's made out to be. Toronto had a really good opportunity in Game 3 when the Panthers won in overtime. That was a bit of a missed opportunity for them, because I will say they were the better team in games 1 and 2, which was obviously reflected. And I'll give them props for, sneaking out a late go-ahead goal in Game 6 for the win there too in Florida. But I don't know. I just look at those 2 6-1 losses, and especially that Game 7 one. I just I think people are kind of kidding themselves that say that they were close to winning the Cup. That series was a lot further than the 7 games it suggested, in my mind.
Do you want to go, Justin, or?
Yeah, I agree with what Travis is saying there too. And, the Leafs, they looked really good, or pretty decent the first 2 games from what I remember seeing. And, in Game 3, they're up 3-1, right? But they blow it. They're blowing it. And the thing I was reading online from, I don't know if these people are actually legit hockey knowledgeable people, or they're just Leaf trolls, or Leaf fans that are just trolling, but they're watching this Edmonton series and whatnot, and they're we're better than this. It's Edmonton was coming back from 3-1 leads, not blowing them. The Leafs are that's a big difference. The Panthers hadn't blown a third period lead or a 3-goal lead in 30 straight or some playoff games.
I think they're 32-0.
And the Oilers did it twice. So within those 30 games, they played the Leafs 13 times, and never did it in any of those games. So there's a big difference there. And for some reason, because they haven't made it out of the second round since 2002, is it 2002 when they lost Carolina or New Jersey in 03 or something like that. But
02.
They've never, a lot of these people online that are probably typing this have never seen the playoffs past that. And it gets harder. It gets harder to win. Games get a lot closer. It's not just because you did this in the first and second round means that it's that easy. And rounds 3 and 4, they don't even know what their team looks like hurt in the playoffs or anything like that. They're not accounting for any of this, but it's hard to tell a lot of those fans that. So I look forward to we took the Panthers to 7 banner raising in early October, and they can all, crown themselves for that. But I don't know, you didn't even win half the games for the Cup. I don't know how you think you're you won 7 games or 6 games.
7
games, right? 7. You won 7 games. You still need
9 more
to go. So that's all I got really.
Yeah, to go on they've never seen their team injured. I mean, the only player that really got injured was Stolarz, but you could argue that the Leafs' greatest strength was their goaltending this year, because you just put in Joseph Woll, who is pretty damn solid. But
he wasn't very solid in those games against Florida, though. He was.
Well, no one was.
No.
To your point too, Trav, they had Florida 3-1, Game 3, you had them down on the mat. This just goes back to all the past years with this Leafs team. There's just no killer instinct on that roster. Because I even looked at the Ottawa series in round 1, you had game 5 at home, chance to end the series, and they laid a complete egg in that game. That should have told Leaf fans all they need to know about the team. Like, they're just nowhere close to being ready as a true cup contender because their top guys don't know how to just close a team out. Like, they've won twice since drafting Matthews in terms of playoff rounds. It's just, like you said, Justin, they haven't made the third round since 2002. The fact that there's Leaf fans just saying, again, a lot of them are probably trolling other fan bases, but to me, it just makes Leaf fans look even more ridiculous than half of them already do. And there's a reason why their team's going to get blown up this summer because they just can't win the big games.
Like, you talk about killer instinct, like against Ottawa, game 5 against Florida, like chance to go up 3-2, get 2 more chances to win. And they lost 6-1 that game too, right?
Yeah, that was the first 6-1.
So
that was Marner's spinorama backhand pass up the center of the ice right to Forsling.
And there you go. That's where I was going next. Marner, like, the Avs took so much heat trading Rantanen in the middle of the year, like, because of you know, like, at the end what happened, but like, you could have risked having this where you lose a 100-point player for absolutely nothing. Instead, you know, they got an H's and a Drury, which is going to help them going forward, regardless of what happens, what we just talked about. But now the Leafs are out a 100-point player, and somehow some of their fan base think they're going to be better. Like, maybe at some point they might be, depending on who they get to fill in for that. But like, you still got to get through the 82 games, and, you know, say what you want about Marner. He puts up 100 points. He, you know, PPs, he PKs, and he's not that bad, like, on the defensive side of the puck. He just disappears when things actually get tough. But they're going to I think they're really going to be hurting for the regular season this next year with him gone, especially for nothing. And I'm interested to see kind of how Marner looks outside of this organization somewhere else, where I think is going to be a lot less pressure and a lot less cameras on him.
I'm interested to see how the Leafs deploy, like if they load up Matthews, Nylander, Nyes on a top line, or if you keep Nylander on a separate line, because if you load those 3 up, there's no depth past them, and teams literally just have to focus on that one line and know that they'll beat the Leafs every night if they shut that line down. Like, and for all Leaf fans going off like, oh, Easton Cowan's going to come in and he's going to replace a lot of Marner's production. This guy is not anywhere close to what Leaf fans think he is. Like, I think I've said it lots on this pod. He is at best going to be a second line center or a second line winger. Like, and it's going to take him years to even get to that. So, I mean, yeah.
No, I was not impressed with him at the World Juniors. So if that's any indication of what's coming on the next step, then yeah, I don't think they should be too hyped up. Like, they got a whole second line to rebuild now, especially if they don't, like, I think they probably end up re-signing Tavares. I think they probably give in to some of his.
I think he stays.
I think, you know, I think they're trying to like really lowball him, but I think they'll find a way to make it work. But he knows, like, he could get that Brock Nelson deal in the open market. So,
oh yeah,
he scored 38 goals last year. It's not like you know, he's like barely getting by out there.
Nope. So it's more recent news. Just dropped today. JJ Peterka, Buffalo Sabres, he is now a new member of the Utah Mammoth. Josh Doan and I blank on the guy's first name, but Kesselring is going back to Buffalo. is this just going to end up being another young player getting traded out of Buffalo that's going to excel because the Sabres just don't know what they're doing?
It could be. Although I'm not sure where Utah is at right now. Like Kesselring was really starting to bloom for them in the last season year. So they get a good player in Paterka, but I don't. This may be. I don't know. This may be a couple years away from, I guess kind of having that typical Buffalo effect that we've seen so many times.
I'm not sure this one. Well, I mean, I think it's too early to say. So this could, come back later. I don't know if this is like the same as like an Eichel or Reinhardt sort of kind of deal. Like I think Paterka is pretty good. He's an unreal sniper. I think everywhere else in his game lacks, unlike, say those other two guys, even three guys like O'Reilly, like kind of more two-dimensional players. I still don't really like Buffalo doing that. Just, considering with the history, this is a team that should be bringing guys in, not shipping them out for that. But the return looked rough when first looking at it, because like I feel like like maybe you should have maybe got like a Schmaltz or something else, like kind of with Kesselring. I think Kesselring's a pretty decent part of that package, but or even like the fourth overall pick like has been like been rumored to be out. Like Utah doesn't even want to make it. Like they want to trade it for guys. So I don't know. Like I think it's just kind of par for the course with Buffalo and their management. So we'll see what else they've got to have something else up their sleeves, because 30 goal scorer, young skilled guy that's now just gone.
Yeah, I think it just goes to Buffalo didn't want to pay him, and he signed a 5-year, $7.75 million per year extension with the Mammoth. Kind of a situation. Buffalo just didn't seem to want to even pay him. I know he didn't want to be there too, but it gives the Mammoth, I think, 4 players 26 and under that had 60 plus points last year. He's joining Gunther, Cooley, and Keller. So the Mammoth have a pretty good, like pretty loaded top 6 now with those 4. And I mean, this season, like Sean Dursey only played 30 games for them last year before getting injured. So you get a full year with him and Sergachev as your top pair. I could see the Mammoth making a little bit of noise in the West with this. But yeah, I agree with you guys. Like Paterka's not quite the guys that's going to push a team over the edge for a cup. And like you said, Trav, the Mammoth they're a few years away from being true cup contenders anyway. Any other topics you guys want to touch on here? Or?
I think Dobson's going to get traded by tomorrow night.
There's rumor that the Islanders want another top 10 pick. So you think he goes to someone to get them inside the top 10?
I mean, be looking at Utah there for that 4th pick if you could find a way to make something like that. Where before we came on, I was reading that Montreal made an offer for Dobson. Like a lot of people are saying that, and I mean, I kind of like that for Montreal. They don't have a top 10 pick, but
no, but they got 2 first rounders.
Yeah, there you go. I wonder, like, when the Isles got the first overall pick, all the Dobson rumors started coming out. Like, I thought it would be good to have him and Schaefer around. Like, you wouldn't really have like any sort of rebuild. You'd just be kind of right back, probably in the mix. But sounds like he also wants like $10+ million. So I kind of, he's pretty good. But I can see why the Islanders are like, we'll see what's out there.
I mean, the Islanders are in such a weird position right now. So
Was it like 2 years ago that Dobson though was like absolutely unreal and he was hurt last year though?
Yeah, he had injuries, and yeah, he's like almost a point a game player 2 years ago.
I don't know. I want to see some action. It sounded like there's all this talk near the end of the Cup finals that it was going to be crazy after the finals and up until, the draft or free agency. So kind of like to see a bit more other than, like Kane and Zegras. Like Paterka's pretty big, but
Yeah, like there's that Zegras trade, but that was such an underwhelming trade, I guess.
the Capitals just traded a second and a sixth to Florida for Justin Sordiff.
Former first-round pick, but he's
blockbuster.
I was just surprised to see a second rounder go for a guy that in the AHL, but must be something there. I was hoping that something would break here tonight, but just nothing yet.
Yeah, so let's, before we wrap here, hoping that there is going to be some big movement tomorrow night on the draft floor. What's the one team you guys each are keeping your eye on for making a big splash?
I'm going to go with Chicago. I just feel like they're destined to make a bigger move this offseason, and they've been, I guess, quiet among the rumor front as of late. So I'm going to say them. And they have the number 2?
Number 3.
Pick? Number 3. Who has number 2?
Sharks.
Sharks, that's right. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say Chicago.
You got one, Justin, or?
You go first. I'm thinking.
I'm going to say Pittsburgh. I kind of said to you guys in our group chat, like, I think them having the 11th and 12th overall now, thanks to the Rangers, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Dubas doesn't try to swing big on something. And given now that you have those two and you're trying to do a quicker rebuild, maybe while you still have Crosby, if they can somehow get into the top 5, that'd be a huge win, because you can get a center that can kind of come in and just play behind Crosby and learn from him for a year or two. Plus, there's now all these rumors that Erik Karlsson's going to get traded. So I think Pittsburgh could be a team to watch tomorrow night.
I was thinking hard there. I'm gonna go with Detroit. I haven't really read a whole lot about it, and this is kind of just me just looking at what teams really need to kind of get things rolling. And I think Detroit, I think their fan base, especially after Larkin's comments after the end of the year of, him kind of complaining that they didn't do anything to make the team better at the deadline. And I think the fans are kind of getting a little weary of the Yzer plan or Yzer scam, whatever you want to call it at this point. So I think, with the way kind of guys, like Larkin and Raymond, Sider, Edvinsson, they're kind of all getting into their they're all kind of proving it. I mean, Larkin's been around forever, but I think they kind of need to do something to get this fan base a bit more rejuvenated, or I think there'd be a lot of noise for Stevie Y to maybe pack the bags.
That's a good pick. Yep. So we'll see what all happens tomorrow night. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll likely do a show sometime after free agency here. So just wrap everything up in a nice little bow. But and thanks for tuning in, snapping around, and probably catch you next week.